All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of this podcast/video series about my Ironsworn campaign. So, the first thing I should probably explain is what we're looking at here. So, this is my Substack. I post all of my actual play reports on Substack. So, if you're interested in reading these, I would love it if you checked it out. You can see the URL in the browser bar right here. I'm basically just streaming my browser because that was the easiest way to go. So yeah, check it out. Also, if you're on YouTube, the link to my Substack is in my bio. So yeah, please check it out. Please subscribe, all that jazz. But yeah, here we go. So this is an Ironsworn campaign. I am going to go through session 0 in this first video. So that involves creating our world, so selecting our truths, and also creating our character. So all the fun stuff. If you're not familiar with Ironsworn, I will be explaining things as we go. So hopefully, even if you have no idea what the rules are, this video can help you get familiar with all of that stuff. But yeah, without further ado, let's go. All right, so my Ironsworn campaign has a title, and the title is The First City. There is a reason for that, and you'll find out eventually, later in this video, why I call it The First City. And hopefully the title makes sense as we go through the campaign. But yeah, so here we go. First things first, let me explain what is Ironsworn in case you have no idea what it is. Although I guess, why would you be watching if you didn't know? If you didn't know what it was. But yeah, so Ironsworn briefly is, it's a fantasy tabletop role-playing game, specifically low fantasy. So basically, the game is set in a place called the Ironlands, which is like this very harsh, gritty, Iron Age-inspired world where life is a constant struggle to survive. Your main objectives in this game are to survive, obviously, fulfill your goals called Iron Vows, and to tell a memorable story along the way, which is the objective for most solo RPGs, I guess. But yeah, Ironsworn is super popular, so if you're aware of solo RPGs at all, you probably know what it is. And probably one of the best things about it is that it's available for free. So if you click this link in my Substack post here, you can actually download the play materials and the rulebook for Ironsworn for free from the publisher website. That's Tompkin Press. So yeah, super cool. It's a really accessible way to get started with the solo RPG hobby. So yeah, if you haven't checked it out yet, I would advise you to give it a try. All right, so we are playing Ironsworn. As an extra thing that I'm doing just for fun, I'm actually going to add an extra challenge, just to make things a little bit more challenging. So this is actually inspired by video game playthroughs. Sometimes I enjoy watching people play video games on YouTube, which is an interesting hobby. And something cool that people do when they play video games is they take on these just arbitrary challenges. So you'll see things like, a 100% no-hit run. So basically you go through the whole game and you don't get hit ever. Like, that's how good you are. Or people do speed runs, like how fast can you get through a game. Those are always really fun to watch. But yeah, I've always found those really interesting, so I decided to do something inspired by that with this RPG playthrough. So we're going to do basically a challenge run of Ironsworn. It's going to be a narrative challenge run. So basically, I call this the Quest Starter Challenge. In the Ironsworn rulebook, there are these prompts called Quest Starters. They're basically creative writing prompts. And they're just questions that help you or help inspire you to come up with creative story ideas for your campaign. There are a bunch of quest starters throughout the rulebook, and specifically each truth has an associated quest starter. So for our challenge, we're going to try to use every single quest starter associated with our truths in our starting region. So that's 11 plus 1, that's 12 prompts in total. So as you can see from this graphic that I made, this tracker, we're going to just try to use all of those quest starters in our story somehow. We can be pretty liberal with how we interpret them. Like, we don't have to adhere exactly to the text of the prompt, because that would be pretty challenging, or it might result in a story that feels a little bit random or not very coherent. So we can be very liberal when we interpret the prompt, as long as it inspires some part of our story in a significant way. Like that's enough for me. And as you can see here, here's an example of what a quest starter looks like. So for example, a quest starter. The spectral maiden appears at the bow of your ship, offering to guide you safely through the storm for a price. What does she demand of you? So basically it asks you a question and tries to get you to think of an interesting answer for your story. So just a creative writing prompt. I love prompts like this. I find them really fun to think through. And so that's why I'm doing this challenge. I think it would be fun to use as many of the quest starters as we can in our story. So yeah, that's what we're going to try to do. All right, so I think that's it for the intro to the campaign. Up next, we're going to start session 0, when we're going to start setting up our campaign by selecting our truths. All right, so let's talk about our truths. So I've split session 0 up into 2 parts. In part 1, we're going to select our truths, and so let's begin. So first, if you're not familiar with Ironsworn, what are truths? Truths are fairly important. So truths describe your setting. So basically, this is Ironsworn's way of letting you build your world in a fairly streamlined way, actually, and it's super fun. Well, I guess if you like multiple choice quizzes, it's fun, which I do. I love that stuff. But it's not a quiz. It's not a test. It's a creative writing exercise, basically. I'm not really making it sound super fun, but it is fun, I swear. All right, so truths. They describe various aspects of your setting. There are 11 categories of truths, so there are 11 aspects of your setting that these help you describe. In the Ironsworn rulebook, there are 3 options for each truth, and you can choose from those to describe your world, or you can ignore them entirely. You can make up your own stuff. Ironsworn is pretty like liberal and free about how you play. I mean, especially with a solo RPG, nobody's gonna referee you, right? Like, you can pretty much do whatever you want. But yes, in general, for the truths, you choose one of 3 options. And that's what I did for this campaign, because I'm a stickler for the rules. And so I just did what it said in the book. So here we go. All right, our truths. So the first category is the old world. A couple things before we start. Or I guess, well, yeah, a couple things. So first of all, I would really suggest that you be reading along in the Ironsworn rulebook as you watch this video. Because, number 1, it's available for free, so why not download it? And number 2, it'll just be much easier for you to see kind of what I'm doing if you're reading the rulebook. Because the second thing I wanted to say is that I'm trying to avoid copy pasting as much as I can, just because, I don't want to copy huge swathes of the rulebook. So for each of these truths, I'm only going to put the first sentence. I think the first sentence is evocative enough anyway that we don't really need the rest of the paragraph for each truth. I think it's enough. So yeah, I'm just going to list the first sentence of each truth that I selected. And so if you want to see the rest of it, please see the Ironsworn rulebook. All right, so first category, the old world. For the old world, I chose the option, the savage clans called the Skulda invaded the kingdoms of the old world. So what does this mean? So the old world basically refers to the place humans came from before they arrived in the Ironlands. If you know A Song of Ice and Fire, like Game of Thrones, I guess that's like Valyria, old Valyria is what they call it, like where the Targaryens came from. Anyway, we're getting off topic, but think of that as the old world. So according to this truth, our people were driven out of the old world by invaders, and the survivors became refugees, and they escaped across the sea to the Ironlands. Each truth, as I mentioned earlier, has an associated quest starter, and for our quest starter challenge that I talked about earlier in the video, we're going to try to use each of these quest starters in our story. So yeah, I guess I'll just read each of these just so we can have an idea of what to expect here. So, quest starter, you are a descendant of the Skulda. Because of your heritage, your family has long borne the distrust of your fellow Ironlanders. Now, a small force of Skulda have landed on our shores. Are they the harbinger of an invasion? Where do your loyalties lie? That's pretty cool. So this is actually a pretty important quest starter for us because it gave me an idea for our protagonist. So there's a phrase here. Your family has long borne the distrust of your fellow Ironlanders. So that makes me imagine our protagonist as a loner, basically. So they've been shunned by society, and so they're a loner. They kind of live by themselves, and they are mistrustful, or, well, they're not trusted by Ironlander society, and probably the feeling is mutual. You know, there's like a mutual dislike or distrust there. And I think our story, because I do tend to like positive stories or, you know, hopeful stories. So I think maybe our protagonist will start off in a negative place, but hopefully throughout the course of our campaign, you know, they'll make friends, you know, the whole found family trope. And yeah, they'll make friends and they'll kind of get closer to the people of the Ironlands. So hopefully, yeah, we'll see how that goes. All right, so second truth here. This category is called iron. The option I chose is the weather is bleak. So basically, this truth is saying that our world is a cold and unforgiving place where survival is precarious. The quest starter is the harvest fell short. The unrelenting snows left the village isolated. The food is running out. What will you do to see these people through this harsh season? Pretty straightforward prompt there. Basically, a community is running out of food. Pretty straightforward conflict, but it is a very dire conflict, so that could be interesting to incorporate into our story somewhere down the line. All right, next. So, legacies. Other humans sailed here from the old world untold years ago, but all that is left of them is a savage, feral people we call the Broken. Quest starter. You find a child, one of the Broken. It is wounded and hunted by others of its kind. Do you protect it, even at the risk of inviting the wrath of the Broken tribes? Okay, so this is one of the quest starters that I'm kind of vibing with the least. I don't really envision the Broken as a major part of our campaign. Like, it's not really bringing up any images for me. So yeah, I don't know if we'll be able to fit this quest starter in, but we'll see. All right, number 4, communities. We live in communities called circles. Now, basically, this truth states that societies in the Ironlands are diverse in terms of size and culture. So basically, we have a wide variety of settlements and societies that we can have in our story, which I think will be good. I wouldn't really want everything to be samey, like all the same. So yeah, I like that this truth gives us the opportunity to kind of design or envision a wide variety of types of settlements. Quest starter. A decades-long feud between two circles has flared into open conflict. What is the cause of this dispute? Do you join in the fight or swear to put a stop to it? Yeah, this quest starter is pretty intriguing for me. I think it could lead to a lot of interesting conflicts, like complex conflicts with interesting NPCs. I'm thinking maybe we can incorporate some kind of nuanced philosophies, like nuanced clashing philosophies. So yeah, I think this could be fun. All right, number 5 is leaders. Leadership is as varied as the people. So this truth, similar to the previous truth, this truth basically states that communities in the Ironlands are diverse. So they have diverse political structures, different structures. So similar to our last truth, I like that this gives us the opportunity to have just different kinds of settlements, different kinds of political structures, versus having everything be the same. Quest starter. You have vivid, reoccurring dreams of an Ironland city. It has strong stone walls, bustling markets, and a keep on a high hill. And so many people. Nowhere in the Ironlands does such a city exist. In your dreams, you are the ruler of this city. Somehow, no matter how long it takes, you must make this vision a reality. All right, now this is actually probably one of the most important quest starters for our campaign. So this quest starter is what inspired the title of this series, which is The First City. And it's going to inspire our character's background vow. So the character's background vow is basically like the overarching vow that the character kind of pursues in the background as the campaign progresses. And hopefully by the end of the campaign, they will have fulfilled or failed their background vow. All right, so basically this quest starter prompt is the guiding star for our narrative. So our character's background vow, and I'll actually go into this later, but our character's background vow will be to found this city, as implied by the quest starter. In terms of why I chose this truth, So I really enjoy stories with a grand scale, like an epic grand scale, and also political themes. Growing up as a kid, I loved series like The Wheel of Time and A Song of Ice and Fire, which is the Game of Thrones series. Yeah, I loved stuff like that. So I really want the opportunity to create a campaign with like a grand scale and lots of lots of political machinations and conflicts and things like that. All right, number 6 is defense. The wardens are soldiers, guards, and militia. Quest starter. You come upon a dying warden. She tells you of an important mission and charges you with its completion. Swear to me, she says, reaching out with a bloodied hand to give you an object crucial to the quest. What is it? All right, so this prompt is pretty, different from the other ones, but I kind of love it. I really like mission storylines. Like I love RPGs, like Mass Effect and things like that. So like I love the idea of missions, like epic missions, and also badass lady warriors. Like that's always a good time. So yeah, I definitely want to try to fit this in somehow. Although it might be a little hard because it feels a little bit separate from all the other quest starters we've had so far. All right, 7 is mysticism. Magic is rare and dangerous, but those few who wield the power are truly gifted. And the quest starter is, you have heard stories of someone who wields true power. They live in an isolated settlement far away. Who told you of this mystic? Are they feared or respected? Why do you swear to seek them out? All right, so here's another quest starter that's a little bit out of left field, not super connected to the other things, but we'll try to find a way to make it work. For me, I don't really care too much about magic in fantasy series, which I guess saying it out loud seems a little silly or ironic because fantasy is full of magic. That's partially the point, I guess, of fantasy. But yeah, I mean, I really, and I'm going to say this again later in this video, but I really prefer human-centric stories, kind of like grounded human-centric stories. So yeah, I don't feel too strongly about incorporating magic into our campaign, but it could be interesting, so we'll try to find a way to fit this in. All right, number 8 is religion. A few Ironlanders still make signs or mumble prayers out of habit or tradition, but most believe the gods long ago abandoned us. Quest starter. A charismatic Ironlander, encouraging her followers to renounce the vestiges of old world religions, proposes a new path for this new world. What doctrine does she teach? What does she seek to achieve? Are you sworn to aid or stop her? For this one, I don't have any ideas. It didn't spark any ideas in me, but it does sound interesting. Sounds like we could get a really fun NPC into this, who is basically a charismatic cult leader. So that's always an interesting time. So yeah, we'll try to fit this in as well. All right, just a few more left. 9 is firstborn. So the firstborn have passed into legend. In Ironsworn, the firstborn are fantastical, non-human species like elves, giants, and trolls. The quest starter is, someone obsessed with the firstborn wants to find evidence of their existence. This will require an expedition into the far reaches of the Ironlands. What is your role in this mission? As I said earlier, I really prefer human-centric stories. Once again, like The Wheel of Time, A Song of Ice and Fire. So I'm not super into the traditional fantasy races like dwarves and elves, but yeah, we'll see. I don't really envision the firstborn playing a huge role in our campaign, but yeah, that might change. We'll see what happens. Number 10 is beasts. The beasts of old are nothing but legend. In Ironsworn, beasts are large, monstrous creatures like basilisks, leviathans, and wyverns. Quest starter. You were witness to an attack by what you thought was an animal of monstrous proportions. No one believes you. In fact, you are accused of the murder you blame on this beast. How can you prove your innocence? Can you even trust your own memories of the event? Okay, so something cool about Ironsworn is that they let you subvert your truths. So basically, Ironsworn gives you a lot of leeway in terms of how you define your truths and, whether you change them mid-game. So, for example, you can say that a truth is a widely held belief, but then later on in the campaign, maybe you discover that it's not actually true. So I think we can do something like that with this truth, because I think beasts are really interesting and fun. So I think what we're going to do is we're gonna start out saying that beasts are not real, like they're just legends, or people believe that they're just legendary. But later in the campaign, we'll find out that, oh my gosh, they are real. Amazing. I think that could be fun. All right. So, all right. Last truth or last category is horrors. Let me make sure I said that clearly. Horrors. Nothing but stories to frighten children. So in Ironsworn, horrors are supernatural entities like chimeras, bonewalkers, and revenants. Quest starter. The murders began last season. Local gossip suggests they are the work of a vengeful horror, but there may be more mundane forces at work. What is your connection to these killings? What will you do to stop them? This prompt feels similar to me to the one the previous one for the beasts category. And similar to beasts, I think it would be fun and dynamic to initially say that horrors aren't real, but then bring them into play later on. So in the middle of our campaign, maybe we realize, oh my gosh, like these things are real. Oh my gosh, who would have thought? All right, and then the quest starter, it also feels similar because it's about kind of a mysterious supernatural attack or murder. So yeah, these two quest starters for beasts and for horrors have inspired some ideas in me for our campaign's inciting incident. Basically, in Ironsworn, your campaign should start with an inciting incident, which is basically an interesting event that kind of sets everything into motion. So we will see our inciting incident in the first session or two of our story. And I think it's going to be inspired by these two quest starters, or at least the one for beasts. Yeah, but I'll go into that more in session 1. All right. So with that, we are finished with selecting our truths. We've chosen all 11, and so our next step is to create our character. All right. So part 2 of session 0, and we are at character creation. Actually, no, that's not true. We are at region selection, everybody's favorite part of campaign setup, region selection. All right, so let me explain what that is first. So we just finished selecting our truths. So we've defined our world. So broadly, we've defined our world. But now we need to zoom in and decide where exactly our story takes place. So Ironsworn is set on a peninsula called the Ironlands. It's like this kind of vast continent. But the Ironlands are full of a diverse set of regions. So there's places, full of ancient forests or icy plains or towering mountains, also like coastline and islands, things like that. So when you start your campaign, you can pick one of these as the region where your story starts out. For this campaign, I've chosen the Havens as the region where our story begins. The Havens are an expansive region of forests, rivers, shrubland, and low hills. Now, the reason I chose the Havens is actually that it feels kind of like a relatively neutral territory, like a neutral area to start. There are other regions in the Ironlands that are more distinctive and more interesting in some ways. So, for example, there's the Deep Wilds, where it's like these ancient, dense forests. There's also coastline and islands, things like that. But because our campaign is going to be, hopefully, quite epic and long, I wanted to start off in a place that was relatively normal and neutral, because then from here we can go to more interesting places. So for example, we start out in the Havens, which is kind of like a very basic area, and then from there maybe our campaign will take us to the Deep Wilds, or to the hinterlands, or to the coast. So yeah, I think this could be a good place to start. As I mentioned for our quest starter challenge, there are 12 prompts we want to use. 11 of those quest starter prompts come from the truths, and then the final one comes from the region, because every Ironlands region has its own quest starter. So the quest starter for the Havens is: a settlement has fallen under the unjust rule of a cruel leader. What leverage do they hold over these people? What is your connection to the community? What can be done to overthrow this tyrant? As I've said several times now, I really enjoy fantasy stories with political themes, political and psychological. So I think this quest starter could be really, really interesting, really fun to incorporate. It sounds like we can have like a ruthless, powerful political leader as an antagonist, and I think that would be a very formidable, interesting antagonist. All right, so that was our starting region. And so finally, here is the final and most crucial part of campaign setup, which is creating our character. So yeah, if you haven't played Ironsworn before, I'm going to walk through each step of the process, and hopefully it's pretty clear, and after this, if you're interested in trying it out yourself, you'll know how to do it. It's pretty straightforward. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pick our hero's name. Now, I personally hate coming up with fictional names. Like, I'm never quite happy with any of the fictional names I come up with, so I always love it if a game gives me options for names that I can just pick. And Ironsworn does just that. So in the Ironsworn rulebook, there are a bunch of oracle tables, including one for names. And so, yeah, the Ironlander names oracle table has about 200 names you can pick from. So I'm going to use that to pick our character name. Because it's an oracle table, this brings us to our very first dice roll. All right, if you're watching the video, you can see that you can already see what value I've rolled. I've already played through session 0, and so I already have all the values. So if you're watching the video, you can see all the values as we go. But if by chance you are only listening to audio, I'm going to do something extra here. I'm going to take some prop dice, or basically just some dice, and I'm going to pretend to roll just so that there's a sound effect of dice rolling. Just because I want there to be some sort of indication, like some sort of auditory indication that we're doing something here. All right, so very first roll, hopefully this picks up on the mic. All right, we got an 81 on the Ironlander names table. So that gives us the options of Pendry or Shakar. Now for me, I envision our character as a woman, funnily enough. So these two names don't really speak to me in terms of, like, yeah, I don't feel like they fit with the character I'm envisioning. So I'm going to take a mulligan. I'm gonna do a do-over. So let's roll one more time. All right, and that gives us a 76. So the options we have here are Cormac or Lucia. As I said, I think our protagonist is going to be a lady. So I think Lucia is a good fit. That works for me. So we'll pick Lucia. So Lucia is her name. One more thing, I do feel a little bit guilty about taking a mulligan on the dice roll. I try not to fudge dice rolls in games just because, if you're going to just redo it, then what's even the point? But names are important. Like, I think it's important to be happy with the name you pick. So if you need to redo a name roll, then I think that's perfectly fine. But just for the sake of wrapping up any loose ends, I'm going to create something that I call a name pool. So basically, if we roll for names and we don't pick some of them, we can put the names into a name pool, and that way later on in the game, as we encounter more characters, we can choose names that we didn't use earlier for those new characters. So in our name pool are the names Pendry, Shakar, and Cormac. So hopefully we can use those for other characters later. All right, and then I have a little spiel here about surnames. So in the Ironsworn rulebook, they say that Ironlanders tend to not have surnames, which is fine. Although I guess that might make it hard to differentiate between, like, what if there are two Lucias? What if there are two Pendrys? But yeah, so I think something that could be interesting, because I certainly don't want to come up with a surname myself, is we can name people after the community or the town that they're from. So for example, Cormac of Deepwater, Shakar of Whitefall, that kind of thing. How this is relevant to our character is earlier in our Truth for the Old World, remember the Skulda and invading the Old World. I said that our character was going to be a loner who is ostracized by society. So because of that, I think she lives alone in the Havens, which is the region we're starting in. And so she won't really have a community. So her full name, instead of having like a town name after it, she could just be Lucia of the Havens. So she's named after the region that she lives in. I think it was kind of inspired by, as many things for me are, it was inspired by Game of Thrones. You know how in the books, A Song of Ice and Fire, like bastards or like illegitimate children have certain names. So, for example, Jon Snow, he's not a Stark. He has the last name of Snow. So yeah, that was like a tangential inspiration for this, where you can tell that Lucia is kind of different because she doesn't have a town name. She's kind of outside of society. All right, moving on. One of the most important parts of our character are their stats. So there are 5 stats that define our player character's strengths and weaknesses. And when you create your character, you can put in 5 values, so 1 value into each of these stats. That's a 3, a 2, a 2, a 1, and a 1. So for Lucia, I put a 3 in edge, a 2 in iron, a 2 in wits, a 1 in heart, and a 1 in shadow. So her strongest stat is edge, her next strongest are iron and wits, and her weakest stats are heart and shadow. So let's go over each of these one at a time. Heart represents courage, willpower, empathy, sociability, and loyalty. I just spotted a typo. Oh my gosh, I need to fix that. Okay. Anyway, so I felt conflicted about this because I love characters with a lot of heart. Like, given the option, I'll always give characters that I make, I'll always give them a high heart score, just because it seems like a great stat, a great trait. You know, courage, willpower, empathy, that kind of stuff. But in this case, I had to go the opposite direction. I think I need to make heart like her weakest stat, because as I said, she's a loner, and I feel like there would be kind of a mutual distrust and distaste between Lucia and Ironlander society. Obviously, she wouldn't feel good about being shunned by them, right? And so she won't really like other people, or she won't like society, or at least she'll start out that way. So I think it makes sense for Heart to have one of her lower scores. These stats each represent a wide variety of traits. So, for example, it's courage and willpower and empathy. I think Lucia does have courage and willpower, so that's not the reason I'm giving her a low heart score. The low heart score is purely due to the low sociability, basically. All right, next stat is edge. Edge represents quickness, agility, and prowess in ranged combat. Okay, actually, here's another stat where I'm kind of going against my natural instincts. Most of the time, if I create a character like in a video game or something, I prefer melee stuff, like a sword. But in this case, I kind of wanted to do something different from what I usually do, so I'm doing the opposite. I'm making her a ranged combat character, so her weapon of choice is a bow and arrow. And yeah, she's very quick and agile and is good at ranged combat. That's very opposite from what I would usually use for a character, because I usually prefer characters who are strong and have melee skills. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I wanted to make this a little bit different from what I would usually do. All right, next up is wits. Wits represents expertise, knowledge, and observation. I want our character to be at least a little bit smart. I want our character to be intelligent and thoughtful. And I want the opportunity to have like kind of a nuanced character arc with introspection. So yeah, I wanted to give her a decent wit score. All right, next up is iron. Iron represents physical strength, endurance, aggressiveness, and prowess in close combat. So I don't envision Lucia as particularly aggressive or physically imposing. Like, she's not like some huge, like a strong barbarian woman kind of character. But I do think that, a lifetime of surviving in the Havens, because, the Ironlands in general, but the Havens also are a very harsh, gritty place. So surviving in an environment like that will, that's very difficult. So I would assume that would have made her strong and physically fit. So I think because of that, having a decent iron score makes sense. And finally, shadow. So shadow represents sneakiness, deceptiveness, and cunning. Now this is often one of my least focused on stats in games. So if I play a video game, I'm not usually making like a sneaky thief kind of character, or a scout, or that kind of thing. So yeah, I gave this stat a 1. This is one of her lowest stats, along with heart. I'm just not super interested in that kind of archetype for my character. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I think she's more kind of direct and brusque, and I think it could be funny or interesting to see just how bad Lucia is at deception. So we can make that kind of a distinct character trait for her. All right, so those are our 5 stats. Next up are some more kind of general statistics. So health, spirit, and supply. These are pretty straightforward. So health is your physical health, spirit is your mental state, and supply is kind of an abstract representation of how prepared you are. So these 3 things are your character's vital statistics. So if these go down to 0, that's very bad. But yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. At the start of character creation, you're going to set all 3 of these tracks to +5. All right, another general stat is momentum. So momentum is a value ranging from -6 to +10, and it represents how you're doing in your quests. Momentum is an interesting mechanic. Basically, it affects your dice rolls. So negative momentum, obviously enough, is bad. It's going to make it harder for you to succeed on your dice rolls. On the other hand, positive momentum can help you succeed. There's also a mechanic called burning momentum, where you can sacrifice your momentum to turn a failure into a success. This can get a little bit complicated, so not too bad, but I don't want to just kind of verbally throw it all at you right now. So what I'll do instead is the first time we encounter using momentum as a mechanic, I'll explain it as we go. But basically, right now, during character creation, momentum is set to +2. All right, next up is bonds. So bonds represent relationships your player character has with other characters and communities in the Ironlands. So for example, maybe they have like really close friends or family or a community that they're very close to. That would be a bond. Bonds affect the story and also certain mechanics in the game. Once again, just like momentum, I'll kind of leave it there for now, but as we go, I'll explain it as it becomes relevant. For character creation, you can start your campaign with up to 3 background bonds, so those bonds are already established, versus other bonds which you'll have to create during your campaign. We can have up to 3 of those. For now, though, I'm actually going to keep things simple and not define any bonds. I want to save those bonds for later, which you're allowed to do. You can save those for later. So I'm just going to define these as they come up organically in the narrative. Like, if I come up with an idea as we play for like, oh, that could be an interesting bond, we'll use up one of our starting background bonds for that. All right, assets. So assets represent your background, skills, and traits. So these are really important resources for you. There are 4 types of assets: companions, which are NPC helpers; paths, which represent your background, training, skills, interests; combat talents, which represent, an area of expertise in fighting; and rituals, which are magical moves you can perform. So there are 4 types. During character creation, you can give your character 3 starting assets, and you can take any combination of the aforementioned types. So I've given Lucia the Archer combat talent, the Outcast path, and the Hound companion. And as I said earlier, I don't want to copy paste too much stuff from the rulebook into my post. So if you want to see more details about these assets, please check out the link on my post. You can go to the Tompkin Press website to download the play materials for Ironsworn for free. And so you can get a PDF full of all of the assets. So you can see all of the details for all of the assets. So going a little bit into these assets that I've picked. The Archer asset, that's an obvious choice because Lucia's main weapon is a bow and arrow. So that's pretty obvious. The Outcast asset, that's also kind of an obvious choice because I've said that Lucia is an outcast of society. She's been shunned by others because of her schooled ancestry. So that's one of her defining characteristics. So I think that picking the Outcast asset makes sense for her. And finally, I chose the Hound asset because I love dogs, and I think any story with dogs is just a better story. So yeah, that's the main reason. But also, I've said that Lucia is going to be a loner, like she's going to live by herself. And that will probably be pretty dangerous, especially in a place like the Havens, because, the Ironlands are super dangerous. So I think it would be more realistic if she had some companion, like a dog, to help protect her, just so that she's not totally by herself. All right, and finally, our first chance to use the name pool. So our Hound needs a name, so we're going to pick something out of the name pool. I like Cormac. I love the movie No Country for Old Men, which is based on a book written by Cormac McCarthy. I haven't read the book, but I've heard that it's amazing as well. So yeah, that's why Cormac sticks out to me. So we'll pick Cormac. The dog's name is Cormac, and that means we can take Cormac out of the name pool. All right, so in the name pool, we have left Pendry and Shakar. So we'll use those for other characters later on. All right, getting almost to the end here. So equipment. In Ironsworn, you don't need to keep detailed track of your inventory, like it's not important. What is important is your supply track, which I mentioned earlier, and that's an abstract representation of your resources. So you don't have to note down anything specific, although if there are kind of important items that might affect certain game mechanics or the story, then you can certainly note those down. So for example, with our archer asset, that only works if your character has a bow and arrow, which she does. So for Lucia, we're going to keep things simple and just say that she has a wooden bow and arrows. If we want to add some flavor, we can say that her father made the bow for her before he died, so it has sentimental value for her. All right, cool. I think we're almost done here. So vows, very important. So in Ironsworn, vows represent significant goals that your character wants to achieve. So throughout a campaign, you're going to have many different iron vows with different levels. Those levels are called challenge ranks, and they are troublesome, dangerous, formidable, extreme, and epic. So troublesome is the easiest, epic is the hardest. And those challenge ranks affect how quickly you make progress on that vow. During character creation, you need to define a background vow, which represents your character's ultimate long-term goal. As I mentioned earlier, Lucia's background vow is inspired by the quest starter for the leader's truth. You have vivid reoccurring dreams of an Ironlands city. It has strong stone walls, bustling markets, and a keep on a high hill, and so many people. Nowhere in the Ironlands does such a city exist. In your dreams, you are the ruler of this city. Somehow, no matter how long it takes, you must make this dream a reality. So yeah, Lucia's background vow will be to found the first city of the Ironlands. That's going to take a long time. That sounds pretty difficult. I mean, founding a city, I've never done that. But yeah, so I'm going to put the challenge rank of this vow as epic. So it's going to be the hardest thing she can do. And I assume it's going to take years of in-game time because she's going to have to get the cooperation of a lot of people. We're going to need to forge a lot of bonds and undertake a lot of different adventures. So yeah, sounds like this is going to be a pretty epic and lengthy campaign. All right, we're pretty much done with character creation. So at this point, what we can do is write a brief profile of our character just to kind of tie up everything that we've defined so far. So here's the character profile that I wrote. 19-year-old Lucia lives in a modest homestead on the vast grassy shrubland of the Havens. She shared the home with her parents until their tragic deaths 2 years back. Now, she takes care of the place on her own, accompanied only by her loyal hound Cormac, who helps protect the property. The nearest settlement is miles away, and she visits it as seldomly as possible. Because of their ancestral connection to the Skulda, the savage clans who ruthlessly invaded the Old World and drove its people across the sea to the Ironlands as refugees, Lucia's family has long been shunned by Ironlander society, and for Lucia, the distaste is mutual. Agile and fit, although not physically imposing, Lucia's weapon of choice is the bow and arrow. She routinely uses a sturdy elmwood bow her father made for her to hunt game in the dark, dense forests that are scattered across the Havens. Lucia has been haunted of late by dreams of a wondrous city where she's never been and that, as far as she knows, doesn't exist. Despite Lucia's contentment in living out her simple life on the homestead, fate seems to have grander plans for this daughter of the Ironlands. All right, so that pretty much ties up all the things we've defined so far. We've got Lucia. She's a young woman living on the Havens with her dog. She's descended from the Skulda. She uses a bow and arrow, and her destiny, hopefully, is to found an incredible Ironlands city. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And then here is the character sheet. So this is a character sheet that I designed for myself, just for fun. I really enjoy graphic design as a hobby. I made this character sheet for myself, so this is going to look totally different from your character sheet. It's not the same as the default character sheet that comes with the Ironsworn rulebook. But yeah, it has all of the vital stats. So it has her 5 stats: edge, heart, iron, shadow, wits, her items, her momentum, health, spirit, supply. and then all of her assets are listed here. As I said earlier, we're saving her background bonds until later. And then finally, her vow is to found the first city of the Ironlands. Before we wrap up this video, we're going to go over our challenge progress. Remember, way back in the beginning of this video, I mentioned that I wanted to take on an optional challenge just for fun. The Quest Starter Challenge, where we try to use up all 12 Quest Starter prompts from our truths in our starting region. We have already been able to use up 2 of them. So the Old World and Leaders. The Old World, we incorporated that because during character creation, we said that Lucia has schooled ancestry, and she's shunned by Ironlander society as a result. And the Leaders Quest Starter, we used it because we said that Lucia is haunted by dreams of a wondrous city, and also her background vow is to found the first city of the Ironlands. So basically, we've already managed to incorporate 2 out of 12 of these quest starters, and we're gonna add more as we go along. So yeah, that's about it for session 0. What we've done, we have selected our truths, we have selected our starting region, and we have created our character Lucia. And we've also introduced this campaign. We've talked about what Ironsworn is, what this campaign is going to be about, and also our fun quest starter challenge. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for more. Please subscribe to the channel and to the Substack. And yeah, let me know if you have any feedback or anything in the comments. Thanks. Bye.